Didn't know they tore a mound down. My friend, we didn't just tear one sacred mound down in Ohio. We tore down, plowed over, or built over thousands of mounds and earthworks in Ohio. Many people don't realize that Ohio was, and still is, home to the largest concentration of prehistoric landscape architecture anywhere in the world. And many of those sacred earthworks were located in places where Europeans chose to build our cities, so they were removed or built on top of. This is certainly true in the case of cities like Marietta, where some of those earthworks were even used to make the bricks that were later used to build homes and even churches. Circleville was built around and on top of a mound complex. Even Columbus was built on and around a mound complex. That's how Mound Street got its name. In fact, in the early 1800s, there was a massive mound at the intersection of High Street and Mound Street. It was 40 feet tall and approximately 300 feet wide. But in the 1830s, it was decided that the population had grown to the point that mound needed to be removed, and the clay from that mound was used to make bricks that was used to build the first Ohio State House, which later burnt to the ground. So yes, it would make sense that the spirits of this great land might be a bit peeved.
There's a book, America is the True World Undiscovered. Now, you can get this on Amazon. We learned something. America truly is the oldest land. When I was going through Tennessee, I'm like, wow, a lot of these mountains look similar to pyramids. And it is called Memphis, Tennessee. But let me read. The Americas, all of the major foods and necessities to sustain life came from the Americas. The North America, South America, and Central Americas are the true old world because all the major foods needed to sustain life came from the Americas and were later taken to Africa and Asia. Foods like squash, tomatoes, corn, potatoes, beans, wheat, yams, wild rice, which was modified to create what we call today white rice. Peanuts, and 90% of all your fruits and vegetables came from the Americas. Now, I'm going to put a link in below where you can look this up and see for yourself on Wikipedia. The oldest pyramids and the most pyramids are in the Americas. The oldest and biggest pyramids are in the Americas. The Chalua Pyramid is the biggest pyramid in the world because the diameters are 400 by 400 meters and has a total volume of 4.45 million cubic meters. Almost twice that of the Great Pyramids of Giza. Now you can see this in the figure here. It says the Chalua Pyramid is also a step pyramid. So we are dealing with one of the most very ancient pyramids. Why? Because the first pyramids on Earth were what we call step pyramids. The pyramids in the Americas are all step pyramids, which were your first pyramids according to Egyptologists. The step pyramids of Saqqara, the pyramids of Dajor, and the first pyramids of the Egyptians built dated around 2667 to 2648 BC. Which was over 4,700 years ago, and Egyptologists agree that the step pyramids of Saqqara, the pyramids of Dajor, was the first pyramids because they agree that the archaeological types of the pyramids, you have more pyramids in North America than all of Egypt combined. And if we see figure 2, in North America, Central America, and all the South America, now if we include the pyramids of Central America, it's not even close. America has over 2,300 and some pyramids. Well, if you go on what we call Africa, the land of Ham, they only have 118 pyramids. Folks, this is ancient Egypt. Study. Read. So you know and don't get bamboozled, hoodwinked, ran amok, or led astray.
The idea that slaves were brought over to America from Africa starts to become questionable. It wasn't until the 1812 period that the plan to rewrite history of America began through the Jesuit empires of Spain, Britain, and France in order to conquer the last remaining civilizations living in terra firma. They have you believe that black peoples, by the millions, were shipped from Africa to America, yet if that were so, we would see well-preserved slave ships, but few are to be found and their genuineness are to be questioned after learning about this secret history. This name, African American, was offered many times and always rejected by the natives to these lands.
Because there's such a confusion about the people, and that was done deliberately by bringing over a few 100,000 dark people from the Caribbean islands and possibly from the continent by way of the Caribbean islands, bringing them here to these lands, creating this facade of everybody coming from the motherland instead of being from here. So there it's created a massive ball of confusion, and this is not what they wanted to do. They wanted to be able to solidify this, that the Negro and the black man, you're from Africa, accepted a long time ago, but it wasn't accepted. As much as they tried to create it into acceptance through the Pan-Africanism. But so it's about identity. It's strictly about identity. Everything that we experience, black folk, lack of a term, white folk in this country.
Many natives of both North and South America were home to many indigenous black peoples, such as in New York, and in Mexico, Wisconsin, in San Francisco, Southern California. They were in Mississippi, and in Oklahoma. This is a depiction of a black native from Terra Fire, or like we have mentioned earlier, Terra Firma, throughout South America. The Caribbean islands were home to the native black peoples. Black people have been on this land far before Christopher Columbus ever stepped foot, if he even existed. We have maps and depictions of Africa with many towns and cities that seem to be castles. I also have shown you sources in the last chapter that most Egyptians were not of pure black Lemurian origin. So why are we fed this lie of Africa? It is to attach the identity of the native peoples of ancient America with a faraway land so that they may be enslaved mentally. This whole process was about erasing the last age, and these cultures were high civilizations that preserved the knowledge of the ages before. Therefore, the rulers that be forced the Spanish, English, and French nations to conquer these lands at all cost. They were funded by the same hidden hand, the first new global corporation, also known in history as the East Indian Trading Company.
We supposed to accept this fact that some pale people crawled out of Europe 6,000 years ago, took over the world and subjugated all of the gods, the demigods, the great men of valor and renown that walked the face of this earth. Make it make sense. There's only one viable way that an inferior mind can conquer a superior mind. And that's if the inferior mind is effective in following orders and they're being told what to do by another superior mind, another God intellect. And in the Yaqub story, when Yaqub knew he wasn't going to live to see into fruition his creation, right? He left niggas in charge to continue his work of creating a physically and genetically inferior being that would rule over a superior. And when we put it all together, we find out that if there's some Negroes that's keeping Yaqub's grafted devil in their place, then it got to be some Negroes pulling the strings behind white supremacy. But first we got to understand what in the fuck is white supremacy. This is going to take us to legalese, because a free white person in law, for lack of a better way to put it, is a Moor. But the organizations was infiltrated.
Or the Etruscan Moors.
They the ones who hold the contract called the United States Contract or the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. The Moors been behind the old time. The dirty Moors.
During the Civil War, the Moors went to war against each other. Now, we destroyed ourselves in this. The Europeans did not come here and bring us down. We did that from inside, and they capitalized on the carnage. Do you understand? All of these buildings all around here, as I told in class last night, they're ours. They belong to us. They're ancient, these buildings. There's a whole city underneath this city. They went and burned all the major cities, the major energy centers on this globe we called an earth. Our ancestors set up these energy centers that we call Philadelphia, New York, Boston, Atlanta, Detroit, right? Chicago, Miami, Phoenix, Los Angeles. They are energy centers. They're not where they are in huge, large cities just because of some coincidence. There's energy and power in these places.